Hello everyone, welcome to chessplay channel. We're gonna talk about the basics of the chess pieces that you can use on the board. We're also gonna talk about how you can capture the other pieces on the board. So let's start with the pawn. The pawn can only move one square at a time. It cannot just go diagonally like that. It can capture diagonally, but you cannot just go like this. Another thing to know about the pawns, from the beginning you can either go 2 squares or you can go only 1 square. Once you went 2 squares here, from now on you only go 1 square at a time. So capturing with the pawn, let's say this pawn is right here, that means you can capture this pawn, or you can just pass it through. You don't have to capture the pawn. Okay, so that's how the pawn goes. Now we can talk about the rook. The rook goes vertically, straight. It goes side to side, horizontally. It cannot go diagonally. To capture with the rook, you also capture straight or horizontally or side to side. So that's for the rook. Let's talk about the knight. The knight is the only piece that can jump over any pieces, and it goes like a L shape. So you go 1, 2, and 3. It makes a L shape. Okay, if you wanna go the other way, you can go 1, 2, 3. It makes a L shape. So let's say this pawn is right here. We can jump over the pawn. So you count 1, 2, and 3. It makes an L shape. Okay, that's the only piece on the board that can jump over the other pieces. Bishop. If you notice, there's a bishop on the white square. There's a bishop on the black square. That's the square it has to stay on. That means it goes diagonally only. Okay, it cannot go straight. So you can only use this bishop on a white square. You can go diagonally like this, and that's how you capture it as well. You capture diagonally. Same thing with this one. It has to stay on a black square. It can go diagonally like this. Okay, it cannot jump over other pieces. None of the pieces can jump over each other except the knight, just to throw it out there. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the queen. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board. It can go pretty much side to side. Okay, it can go up and down. It can go diagonally. Pretty much it's combined the rook and bishop together, and that's why it's considered a very powerful piece on the board. Now we're gonna talk about the king. The king is the weakest on the board. It's a very important piece on the board as well because you gotta protect it, but it's also weakest because it can only go 1 square at a time on the board. It also, when it captures, it only captures 1 square that's by the king. Okay, so if this pawn is right here, you can capture it. Let's say if this pawn is right here, you can capture it. So that's pretty much the basics of the chess pieces. Now let's go over how you actually capture them. So for example, if this pawn is right here and this pawn is right here, that means you can take this pawn or you can pass it. So it's really up to you what your strategy is on the board. You can make that decision. Okay, but to capture it, you capture diagonally. Okay, for the rook, let's say this pawn is right here. It can capture to the side. Okay, so if the pawn was right here, rook cannot capture it like that. It also means that the pawn is threatening the rook. Okay, so that means the pawn can take the rook if it was the next turn for the black. Now we're gonna talk about the knight. The knight goes like a L shape once again, and let's say this pawn goes right here. That means you just go 1, 2, and 3, and you can capture that pawn. That's how the knight captures. So another thing to know, the knight can also jump over. Okay, so you can 1, 2, 3, you can jump over. We already talked about it, but just a little reminder. Now let's talk about the bishop. So the bishop, if this pawn was here, the bishop can take the pawn just like that. That's how the bishop captures the other pieces. The queen, it can capture anyway. Okay, so it can capture, if this was here, it can capture it. Okay, if this one was here, this pawn was here, it can capture it just like that. Okay, that's why it's considered very, very, very powerful move. That's it for the basics today. Make sure to subscribe to the chessplay channel. We're gonna talk about more strategies, and I will show you some other tricks and moves and most important things to know about the chess. And I guarantee you, you're gonna learn how to be a great chess player if you subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Bye.